By early spring things were in pretty good shape. Dr. House and Carrie returned to Hopkinsville and Gertrude, and Hugh Lyam went with them for a visit to the Hill. Edgar gave up I Cottage and moved into the studio. The folks left at the end of March. One evening late in May, Dr. House called on the telephone from Hopkinsville. "Carrie's sick," he said, "and she wants you to come over here and give a reading for her. I've had Dr. Haggard up from Nashville and he wants to operate, but she won't do a thing without getting your consent. You'd better come over. She's pretty badly off." Edgar took the night train all the way to Hopkinsville. He prayed. Carrie's faith in him had always made him feel warm and good. She had insisted that the readings were correct in their diagnoses, and that the power was a gift from There Is a River God. She had trusted him in other things, too. She had given him money when he needed it, and now, with the money in jeopardy because of the fires, she was putting her life in his hands. Was her faith justified? How could he possibly know what was wrong with her? How would Dr. House feel watching an untrained man go to sleep and diagnose his wife's condition, while he, a trained physician, stood by, helpless to interfere? The next morning, facing the couple in the living room at the tea-till, he felt even worse. Carrie was obviously quite sick and in pain, but her faith was unwavering. "A reading will tell you what's wrong with me and what to do for it," she insisted. "Get it as soon as you can, Edgar. Dr. House will take down what you say." In the presence of other people, she never called her husband anything but Dr. House. Edgar went into one of the bedrooms and put himself to sleep, first instructing Dr. House about the suggestions, especially the one for waking him up. That, he had discovered, was the only important point about the phenomenon. One could conduct a reading, so long as the proper suggestion for waking was given. And the conductor was careful not to move away from the sleeping body while the trance persisted. When he awakened, Dr. House looked glum. "Haggard thinks she has a tumor of the abdomen," he said. "I've had all the local doctors in. They agree with the diagnosis. You say there is no tumor. You say she is pregnant, and the trouble is a locked bowel. What you suggest for the locked bowel sounds reason able, warm oil enemas and some other things." He shook his head. "There is a river, but I don't see how she can be pregnant. She's not supposed to be able to have children." Edgar felt miserable. He had hoped that he would agree with the doctors. It would have made things so much easier. W.H. Haggard was one of the leading specialists in Nashville. "I'm going to try these things," Dr. House said. "We'll see what happens." Edgar stayed that day and night at the Hill. Next morning, Dr. House came from Carrie's bedroom and shook his hand. "You were right about the locked bowel," he said. "She's better now. But I don't see how it can be a pregnancy." Edgar returned to Bowling Green. The following November, Thomas Burhouse, Jr., was born, a 7 months baby. He was so small and fragile that he was carried around on a pillow. No one but Carrie believed he would survive the winter. He was sick most of the time, and inclined to convulsions. One day in March he had so many that Carrie asked Dr. House to call Edgar. This time when he arrived from Bowling Green there were 2 local doctors present besides Dr. House. One of them pointed at Edgar and said, "If you're going to fool with that faker, I'm through." He left. The other physician, Dr. J.B. Jackson, who had long been the Casey family doctor, remained. Carrie was sitting in a low rocker in the living room, by the front window. In her lap lay the baby, convulsing regularly every 20 minutes. Edgar turned away and went into the bedroom across the hall. Dr. House and Dr. Jackson followed him. He lay on the bed and went to sleep. When he woke, Dr. House was sitting beside him. Dr. Jackson had gone back into the living room. The door was open. Edgar could hear him talking to Carrie. "There is a river now, Mrs. House. You can't do what that man tells you to," he was saying. "What he tells you to give your child is poison." Edgar walked in and stood by the fireplace. Carrie kept rocking, staring down at the baby. Dr. House came in and sat beside her. Carrie spoke to Jackson. "You're one of the doctors who told me I had to have an operation, aren't you?" she said. "I didn't have one. Now my baby's dying, and you can't help him. But you don't want me to do what Edgar says. Well, I'm going to do it." Dr. House spoke to her coaxingly. "What he prescribes is an overdose of biwadoima," he said. "You know yourself how poisonous that is." "Of course. He gives an antidote. But how do we know it will work?" "The only thing we know is that the baby's going to die. If we don't do something," Carrie said, "this is our only chance. Measure out the dose." "Dr. House, I'll give it to him myself." Dr. House went to his room and came back with the belladonna. Carrie administered it. In a few minutes the baby relaxed, stretched, and went to sleep. "Get the antidote ready," Carrie said. Jackson turned to Edgar. "You gave something else," he said. "A peach tree poultice. I don't know how to make it, or what good it will do, but you prescribed it. Do you know what it is?" "I'll fix it," Edgar said. He was glad to get out of the house. He wanted something to do. Standing there, watching the baby as it lay in Carrie's arms, waiting for it to live or die, was more than he could bear. What could a peach tree poultice be? It couldn't be made of leaves, for every limb in the orchard was bare. "Yes, hin Ed, there is a river." Up one of the peach trees and picked off the youngest, tenderest branches. They would make a good brew, if that was what was meant. He took them over to the kitchen, a building separate from the house, and put them in a pot, pouring hot water from the kettle over them. Mrs. Evans came from the house to help him. When the brew was strong enough, they dipped tow carottels in it, rinsed them, and carried them into the house. Hours that seemed endless to Edgar dragged by. Then, as he brought a fresh batch of towels into the living room, Carrie looked up at him and said, "He's all right. I knew if anyone could save him, you could, Edgar." He went outside and stood in the cold night, taking deep breaths. Dr. House joined him. "There's no use in being a mule," the doctor said. "You saved Carrie, and now you've saved the boy with this trance business of yours. It still sounds like foolishness, but it's pretty accurate foolishness. I'm afraid I'll have to believe in it myself. I hope you're right, Edgar said. After tonight, I'm beginning to believe in it too. Standing under the winter sky, watching the stars and knowing he had done a good thing, he felt that he understood himself for the first time. He had saved a human being, a child, from suffering, perhaps from death, by the use of a power that had been given to him by God. It was his greatest dream come true. Wasn't his life meant to be lived that way? Back in Bowling Green, his burst of faith passed. Every day he saw his doctor friends. Their quiet cockshawness, their facile handling of medical and scientific terms. Their occasional suggestions that he let bygones be bygones and continue the interesting experiments, bogged him in a there is a river melancholy that deepened as he realized diet the goal he now had set for himself was the lowest of his life. He merely wanted to be free of debt. In August 1909, the last bill was paid and receipted. After 7 years of labor, he was stone broke. He went to Hopkinsville and stayed at the Hill with Ger. Trude, Hugh Lynn, Dr. and Mrs. House, little Tommy, and the rest of the family, to keep himself busy and to cover the humiliation he felt at being out of a job and without funds. He offered to move the kitchen over to the house and join it to the main building. It was a prodigious task, involving all sorts of impromptu engineering feats. During one of them, while the kitchen was moving on its rollers, XMT, Kate, who was helping him, said quietly to Edgar, "You'd better stop the blasted thing if you can. My Ger's caught underneath it." There was no way of stopping the movement, or even checking it. The kitchen rolled on, leaving the finger a battered mess. The job was finished without further mishap. When it was done, Edgar packed up and went off to look for work. He returned for Christmas, though it was necessary to give up the job he had formed in Gadsden, Alabama, to do so. "I couldn't stay away any longer," he told Gertrude. "To get another job. Photographers are scarce in Alabama. I've already been offered a job in Anniston, with Russell Broth. I'm going to work around the state until I find the right town, and then open a studio of my own. We'll start all over again," Gertrude said. "We can't always have such bad luck." During the holidays, the squire took him to meet Dr. Wes. There is a river Lay H. Ketchum, a homeopath who had opened an office in Hopkinsville. Homeopaths at the time were numerous and popular. They were called spoon up and spoon down doctors, owing to their custom of giving medicine in small and frequent doses, usually a teaspoonful at a time. Some people called their medicine stomach water. Hut, the homeopaths, who mixed their own prescriptions, had a large following. Ketchum, a keen-faced, pince-nez young man in his early 30s, greeted Edgar cordially. He had heard of the readings. He had talked with some of Lane's old patients. He wanted to see a reading. Edgar said he no longer gave them for exhibition purposes. "How can I get one?" Ketchum asked. "If you come with a written request from a person who really needs help," Edgar said, "I'll give one. That's the only condition. Wait here, Ketchum said. They were in his office. He went out of the office and across the street to the Latham Hotel. In a few minutes he came back, waving a paper. I have it, he said. This person needs help very much. Is it genuine? Edgar asked. On my honor, Ketchum said. Then I'll give it, Edgar said. When? Ketchum asked. Right here, now, Edgar said. He took off his tie, loosened his collar, cuffs, and shoelaces, and lay down on Tybexamy Nation table. The squire said he would give the suggestion. Ketchum handed him the paper. Edgar went to sleep. When he woke up, Ketchum was standing in the middle of the room, his thumbs hooked in his vest, teetering back and forth on his heels, smiling to himself. Well, that beats anything I've ever seen, he said. You know, that would fool anybody but a fellow like me. There is a river, he teetered some more. Yes, sir, if you'll tie up with me we'll make a barrel of money. He laughed. You were talking about me, he said. You say I think I've got appendicitis. Man, I know I've got it. I've been examined by 6 of the best doctors in the state. I'm going to be operated on next Wednesday. You say I fell over a box and hurt myself. You tell me to go to an osteopath, and he'll fix me up. My boy, you're a fake. But if you'll tie up with me we'll go all over the country and fool everybody. Yes, sir, you're smooth. You'd fool anybody but me. Edgar was boiling with rage. He tried to control himself. When he spoke, if it's a fake, he said, it's not my fake. I don't know anything about it. But maybe you can tell me how I happened to pick on appendicitis. If I'm a fake, why didn't I say you had stomach trouble, or sore feet, or a bad heart? If I'm a fake, I dare you to prove it. And if you do, I'll never give another reading as long as I live. He strode out of the office. The squire followed him. When they had gone, Ketchum called to his secretary. She had been sitting behind the half-opened door to the inner room, taking down Edgar's words in shorthand. Type out those notes as soon as you can, Ketchum said. I think I have this FEOW where the hair is short. When the transcript of the reading was ready, he put it in his pocket and went up the street to the office of Dr. James E. Oldham, the local osteopath. Oldham, he said, I'm Ketchum, the new homeopath. The regular doctors don't like me any better than they like you. I thought we ought to get together. Maybe we could be friends. There is a river. Oldham acknowledged the introduction and shook hands. How about looking me over? Ketchum said. I'm not feeling too well. Glad to, Oldham said. Just strip to the waist and get on the table. While he was disrobing, Ketchum continued the conversation. Do you know this fellow Casey, who gives readings? He asked. Oh, yes, Oldham said. What do you think of him? Ketchum said. He's smart, Oldham said. He catches on quickly. He usually shows a pretty good smattering of medicine. I suppose people tell him things, Ketchum said. Yes, Oldham said. I treated him when he couldn't talk. He learned all he knows from me. He recommended patients to you in his readings, didn't he? Ketchum said, when he was working with La Cariteni? Yes, Oldham said, but I diagnosed the cases myself. Suppose he took a patient away from you? He did that, didn't he? Yes, Oldham said. Did the patient die? Not that I know of. Ketchum got on the treatment table. In one hand he held the folded copy of the reading. Well, he said, I think is a fake, too. To tell you the truth, I have a reading that he gave on me this afternoon. I think I've got him trapped. Now you go ahead and examine me and tell me what you find. He lay on his face and Oldham examined his spine, pressing on various vertebrae. Have you had a pain in your right side? Oldham asked. Yes, Ketchton said. There is a river till bet you think you've got appendicitis, Oldham said. Good God. That's exactly what Casey said. Ketchexon unfolded the reading and stared at it, his head hanging over the end of the table. There's a lesion here, Oldham said, pressing on two vertebrae. Probably caused by a fall or strain. What would you do for it? Ketchum asked. It's not hard to fix, Oldham said. I'll get my wife in here and have her hold your feet while I give your back a twist. That's what Casey says, Ketchum answered from the end of the table. He even says your wife should hold my feet. That night Edgar and Leslie went back to Ketchum's of Fice, at his request. He was holding on to his side with his right hand when they entered. With his left he waved them to a seat. You're not a fake, he said to Edgar. I've just been a damned fool. He related his experience with Oldham. I was fooling this afternoon about teaming up with me, he said, but I mean it now. We can do a great deal of good for a lot of people and make a fortune for ourselves. We can find new cures for diseases. We can revolutionize medicine. What do you say? Nothing doing, Edgar said. He was still mad. I'm glad. You discovered Yoxna mistake, he said. You've found out. I'm not a fake, like all the other doctors who've investigated me. Now if you fellows could convince me that you all are not fakes, maybe I'd join up with you. It was a quiet Sunday night in Montgomery, Alabama, late in October, 1910. A photographer of the H.P. Tressler staff, returning from a week's trip into the country, entered the studio building and trudged upstairs, lugging his equipment. He was a slim, tired-looking young man, with long legs and arms and a round, boyish face that made him seem younger than his 33 years. A light was burning in the reception room of the studio. A man was curled up in one of the easy chairs, dozing. He leaped to his feet when the photographer walked in. Are you Edgar Casey? He asked. The photographer nodded. Yes, he said. We've been looking all over for you, the man said. You're famous. He pulled a fistful of clippings from his pocket. New York Times, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Denver Post, Kansas City Star. He handed the clippings to Edgar. The first one was a page from the New York Times of Sunday, October 9th. There is a river. From it stared two pictures that were familiar. They hung on the walls of the Casey living room in Hopkinsville. One was of Edgar, the other of the squire. Between them on the newspaper page was a picture of Ketchum. A streamer head line said, illiterate man becomes a doctor v*T*En hypno. Teased strange power shown by Edgar Casey puzzles Pietwy. Sessions. Edgar sank into a chair and began to read. The medical fraternity of the country is taking a lively interest in the strange power said to be possessed by Edgar Casey of Hopkinsville, Chi, to diagnose difficult diseases while in a semi-conscious state. Though he has not the slightest knowledge of medicine when not in that condition. During a visit to California last summer, W.H. Ketchum, who was attending a meeting of the National Society of Homeopathic Physicians, had occasion to mention the young man's case and was invited to discuss it at a banquet attended by about 35 of the doctors of the Greek letter fraternity, given at Pasadena. Dr. Ketchum made a speech of considerable length. He created such widespread interest that one of the leading Boston medical men who heard his speech invited Dr. Ketchum to prepare a paper as a part of the program of the September meetings of the American Society of Clinical Research. Dr. Ketchum sent the paper, but did not go to Boston. The man coughed to attract Edgar's attention. "I'm a reporter," he said. "I wanted to ask you about this. What is it all about? Is it true?" "I don't know," Edgar said. He smiled helplessly. "I'm the man," he said, "but I don't know anything about this report." "I know Ketchum. I've given some readings for him when I've been at home for visits. But I had no idea he was going to make a report about it. I've been out in the country for a week. I haven't heard from my wife in that time." "That's what I want to get," the reporter said. "The per. So now, Stufy F. How do you happen to be here in Montgomery, working for Tressler?" He wasn't sure it was the same man when the stories began to break, but he knew you were from Hopkinsville, and when he saw the picture of you he was sure. But he said you came to him from Russell Brothers, and that you had been working for them over in Anniston and Jacksonville. Edgar explained. "I used to have a studio in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It was burned out. So I left my family in Hopkinsville while I came down here to work, until I could save enough money to open another place of my own. I left Russell Brothers last July 4th and came over here." "Well, your troubles are over," the reporter said. "Looks as if you can forget photography now. Say, how does it feel to be famous?" Edgar looked at the clippings. "Would you call it fame," he asked, "or notoriety?" "That's up to you." "I'd say," the reporter said, "it depends on what you do with it. People are continually popping up as 9-day wonders. Swahe stay on top, some are never heard of again." Edgar nodded. "It depends on what I do with it," he said, "and what others do with it. That's the trouble. I never know what's going on when I'm asleep. I have to be sure the people I work with are honest and have the same ideas about it as I have." "What is it, anyhow?" the reporter asked. "How does it feel?" "I can't describe it," Edgar said, "or explain it. It's just something that's in my mind, like knowing how to take a picture, or like writing a letter, or even like getting up out of a chair. You think you'll get up out of a chair, and you do, and all the things T happen to bring it about are mice there is a river to use, but they're mysterious because you do it so easily that you don't think about them. Maybe that's not just the way it is, but when I lie down and want to go into this sleep, I do. And when I lie down and want to go into the other kind of sleep, the kind we all know, that rests us, I do. That's all I know. Sinra, the reporter said. Well, I want to catch the paper with this, so I'll run along. Congratulations on your fame or notoriety, whichever it is. When he had gone, Edgar looked again at the chpings, reading them over and over, trying to figure out what had happened. In all, young Casey has given more than 1,000 read. Probably he had, but not for Ketchum. Some of these reported were Lane's cases. There was a description of the Dietrich experience, for instance. For Ketchum he had given only 2 sets of readings. He had Sigmundbed twice to the doctor's offer of transportation to and from Hopkinsville in return for his services. During the visits he had gone to Ketchum's office each day, given readings, asked no cues, tie-ins, and requested only the assurance that the cases were all people in need of help. Apparently Ketchum, on a visit to California, had told some tall tales, and when asked to elaborate them in a scientific paper, had rounded up all the available evidence in Hopkinsville. It made a good story. What interested Edgar most was the explanation of the phenomenon, which he was supposed to have given in a reading. Our subject, while under autohypnosis, on one occasion, explained as follows, when asked to give the source of his knowledge, he being at "There is a river." This time in the subconscious state, he stated, Edgar cases. Mind is amenable to suggestion, the same as all other subconscious minds. But in addition thereto it has the power to interpret to the objective mind of others what it acquires from the subconscious mind of other individuals of the same kind. The subconscious mind forgets nothing. The conscious mind receives the impression from without and transfers all thought to the subconscious, where it remains even though the conscious be destroyed. He described himself as a third person, saying further that his subconscious mind is in direct communication with other subconscious minds, and is capable of interpreting through his objective mind and imparting impressions received to other objective minds, gathering in this way the knowledge possessed by millions of other subconscious minds. So that was it. Well, it didn't mean much, because it didn't tell Toei he could do what others could not. Apparently his mind was not different from others except that it could work backward. If all people were like him, they could all be hypnotized and would then be able to send back through the conscious what their subconscious minds knew. Apparently God did not intend it that way. He made man to walk through the world in darkness except for what he learned by experience and what he believed by fate. Happy Smiley. Why, then, was he different? The vision of the lady was the answer, if he could accept it. Sometimes he could. He accepted it on that March night when he stood in the cold, still air and knew that Carrie's baby had been saved. Sometimes he couldn't accept it when he washed his hands and saw that they were the rough tools of a workman. When he shaved in the morning and saw that his face wore the tenets of a simple, uneducated man who was wishful, stubborn, sentimental, even fouche at times, when he sat at night reading his Bible, and knew that he was a quaintry boy with far less magic in all of his being than was contained in the stem of a Mayflower. There is a river. President James Hislop of the American Psychic Society has made suggestions in regard to the development of the subject's powers. Other psychologists in Europe and America are seeking information, and Dr. Ketchum's plan is to have a committee of scientists of the highest standing come to Hopkinsville and investigate in most rigid manner and make a report as to the truth of what is claimed but not understood. Edgar went to his desk and got his mail. What was up? Were the scientists about to descend on him? Gertrude's letter didn't end him. All she knew was what she had seen in the newspapers. She wanted to know what he was going to do. His mother's letter gave part of the story. Dr. Ketchum didn't give your name in his original report, she wrote. The newspapermen came to town in droves and found everything out. They stole the pictures off the living room walls, and I didn't even know it until I saw them in the newspapers. It's been terribly confusing. The house has been full of people all of the time. I hope that it will be for the best. Your father is very proud. There was a letter from Ketchum, too. He offered no explanation of what he had done. Instead, he urged Edgar to come back to Hopkinsville and make a business of giving readings. A company would be formed, Ketchum, the squire, and Mr. Albert D. New, owner of the Latham Hotel in Hopkinsville, were already in partnership on the deal. If Edgar would cooperate, he would be made a full partner. All they wanted to know was what terms he would accept for his services. They would agree to anything reasonable. And so far as Ketchum was concerned, there was no such word as unreasonable. You can have what you want, he wrote. Edgar snapped off the light. For the rest of the night he sat in the dark studio, staring through the sky-ute windows at the stars. His hour had come. He had to make up his mind about himself and his strange power. There is a river. It should, he knew, be an easy decision. He wanted to believe that God had given him a gift to be used to help humanity. He was like Moses. He could not believe it had happened to him. One thing was certain, it was a talent, not a trick, not a maladjustment, not an affluent. He was a well man. He had been well for years, except for the trouble with his voice. It was not summitlying that demanded an unnatural condition of his body. He did not need to get himself into a mood by burning incense, stealing to music, or muttering incantations. He did not need darkness. He did not find it necessary to abstain from certain foods. He smoked whenever he wanted to smoke. It did not require religious ecstasy, prayers, or even a period of quiet and meditation beforehand. All that was necessary was that he be in normal health, and that his stomach have finished with its digestion of the last meal. It did not tire him. He usually awakened feeling refreshed. He always felt hungry, but a cracker and a glass of milk satisfied this feeling. He could not do it more than twice a day without feeling a sense of weariness and depletion. But it was not reasonable to expect so complicated a procedure to be executed more often. So it was, apparently, something that was natural to him. Something like an ability to write, or paint, or sing. It was an expression of himself. He wanted to help people, just as comedians wanted to make people laugh. This was the way which had been given to him for the satisfaction of his desire. He had only to use it for that intended purpose. Obviously, it was not meant that he help only a select few, such as the members of his family, or those who heard about it from persons who had been helped, like the Dietrichs. It was A to the power of T of God, destined for everyone. But a gift of God could be controlled by the devil. Every there is a river talent could choose one of two masters, and in his case the choice was not entirely his own. When he used his talent he was asleep. Who would watch to see that it was not misused? How would he know whether his mind was up to good or evil? Blackburn had always contended that his sleep mind contained his conscience and could not be led astray. He pointed to the collapse on New Year's Eve as an example of the guardianship of the sleep mind over the body. On the other hand, Edgar had himself said, in a reading, Edgar Case's mind is amenable to suggestion, the same as all other subconscious minds. Those other subconscious minute DS, when in a state of hypnosis, would do whatever they were told to do. So would his mind, apparently, for did it not seek out people and diagnose their ailments? Suppose it was told to do something else, give information that would be valuable for unscrupulous purposes. Would it do it? His only safeguard would be himself. If he remained incorruptible in his own life, and prayed for guidance and help while giving readings, surely God would not let him be duped. That was the best he could do, and it was his duty to do it, for all those who needed help, and for Cousin Ike. The memory of Cousin Ike had always haunted him. Years before, when he was working with Lane, Ike had come to them for help. He had been to many doctors. They had not helped him. He was in bad shape. A reading was given, Lane began treating him, and he improved. He moved into town and stayed with the squire in the house on West 7th Street so he could be near Lane's awful sea. Then Lane was ordered to cease practice. Ike got worse. He sent for Edgar, who had come to Hopkinsville for the weekend. There is a river. He was very ill that day. His wife and daughters were with him. He waved them out. "Let me talk to old man alone," he said. He asked Edgar to sit beside him. Then he took his hand and said, "How do you do this stuff, old man? How do you tell people what is wrong with them? How does Lane know how to treat people as you tell him to?" Edgar told him he didn't know. He repeated his experiences, except for the vision of the lady. "Listen to me," Ike said. "I've known your mother and father since they were HTTLE children. I was present when they were married. I've known you since the day you were born. I saw you every day of your life until a few years ago. I know you are unusual in some ways, your knowledge of the Bible, for one thing. But this other thing, do you think It is some trick you've learned under Lane's guidance. Edgar shook his head. I don't know, he said. I'm a dying man, Ike said. They say a dying man has wisdom in his words. I don't know. But I want to tell you. To consider this thing you have, find out what it is, and act accordingly. Is it a gift of God? I think it must be.